have a lot of background noise. But I'm excited for tonight. It's going to be full of lots of great information about homeschooling. And just to be clear, this conversation is completely different than a conversation we would be having about virtual school. So we are talking like full-blown homeschooling, not necessarily the virtual school that the public school system or that some of our private schools are having to do right now. But this is, you guys are just going to get a lot of really, really good information tonight. We're going to start off by introducing our panel in just a few minutes. We've got 3 families that are represented from Oak Hills, and they're going to share their journey of how they got to the decision to homeschool. And then we've got a few topics that we want to address, and I'll let them go over that. But as they're talking, I want to encourage you that if you have any, like, there is no question that's off limits. They may not know the answers, and if they don't, they'll say, we don't know the answer to that. But if they do, or from their experience, they can share with you, they will. So as they're talking, if some questions come to mind, feel free to write those down so that you don't forget them, because at the end, if we have enough time, we really, we want to be able to open it up for Q&A. The other thing that you can do, I want to remind everybody, this is being recorded. And so if you want to go back and reference it, or if you want to share it with anybody, we'll have that available. But if you don't want to speak up on camera, or you just don't want to be recorded, then you can private message me any question that you have, and I will, I'll share the question at the end anonymously. I won't share your name. Or if you just want to put your question in the chat, then you can put your question there, or just speak up whenever it's time. So it's going to be a great evening, lots of great information, and we'll also give the contact information of our panel tonight, so that if you have questions afterward, you'll be able to reach out to them and they can help you. So let me go ahead and start off with a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right in, okay? God, thank you so much for just this opportunity to spend with these families, God. You know that this is that our lives are kind of crazy right now, and there's just some really big, important decisions that families are making. So, Lord, we dedicate this time to you. Lord, would questions that parents have come to mind? Would they feel comfortable to share and to ask here, God? And for our panel tonight, Lord, would you give them wisdom? Would you even just encourage their hearts as they're talking, Lord? Thank you just for the gifts that you've given them, the experiences that they've had so far, just educating their children. And God, I pray that you would use this evening to help some families make some really great decisions in their life. Lord, we love you so much, and we're so thankful for this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, again, we're excited about this evening. We're going to start off by introducing our panel tonight, and I'm going to let them do that. So we've got, they're all, and you probably know them, they're all Oak Hills Church members and are very involved and have a lot of experience in homeschooling. So this is going to be good. We're going to start off with Matt and Sarah Moore, and then we'll go to Scott and Mindy Thomas, and Scott and Jackie Jones. So go for it, guys.
Hey guys, I'm Matt Moore. This is my wife, Sarah Moore, and we're excited to be here tonight. A little bit about us. We have 5 boys, and Connor is 11, Cameron is 10, Corbin is 7, Cohen is 5, and Calvin is 3. It's like a quiz, I passed. So we've been homeschooling for 7 years. We did it from the beginning, but we didn't know that we were going to do that, but initially, but we kind of found ourselves there. I work at the church. I'm the minister of adult ministries, and Sarah stays home with the boys. And so that's a little bit about us. She's going to tell you a little bit about our journey to homeschooling.
So we were both public school educated, and didn't ever really have intentions of homeschooling, but we kind of looking back, we can see different ways that God sort of laid the groundwork for that. Before we had kids, we became really good friends with a couple that had 3 kids and began homeschooling in the course of our friendship. And we thought they were excellent parents and thought they were doing some great things, but still were not really like, oh, that's the plan for us, until it came time to put our oldest in school and for kindergarten. And we just had kind of formed some ideas about what we thought a healthy childhood looked like, and the experience of being in an in-home Montessori preschool had been a really wonderful experience. And it was just a really small environment with a Christian teacher that welcomed parents to kind of check in and to just be super involved. And so just a variety of things. The school that we were zoned for, probably this was what like hit hard, was we knew we did not want him in that school. We had friends who taught that said, you don't want your kid in that school. And so we kind of thought, well, we'll just do kindergarten and then we'll move eventually and we'll be in a better school. And really through the course of that kindergarten year, we fell in love with it and said, this is it. This is the right thing. And unless God veers us elsewhere, this is where we're sticking. So we always want to hold that with an open hand and say, Lord, as you lead. But thus far, he has only over and over again confirmed this is right and good and what I have planned for you. And so that's kind of what got us to where we are.
Okay.
Thanks, Morris. Okay, Thomas's, you're next. Oh, you're muted. There you are.
How's that? Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Thomas. This is Mindy, my wife. We've been homeschooling for, I'd say, about 15 years now. We have 10 kids. I'm not going to bother naming them all because that would take all of our time. But they range from age 20. We have 2 who finished high school now and homeschooled from kindergarten through high school. And then we have other high schoolers, middle schoolers, elementary schoolers, toddlers. We got 1 toddler. So we've seen a lot in the last 15 years. I'll tell you just kind of how we got started from my perspective. But that was about 15 years ago, so I'm going to have to pass it off and let her kind of fill in the blanks. But I'm an ophthalmologist, and we started homeschooling. We had 3 kids when I was a resident, and those are busy times for doctors. So we had chosen a home to live in. We bought a home, and it was way out in the suburbs, but we bought it there because we could afford it and because it was in a school district that we were familiar with, and it was, supposed to be a good school district. So our oldest started kindergarten, and you'll have to say exactly how long, but I think we kept her in this public school kindergarten for about a month, 6 weeks. And we just knew she wasn't going to learn a lot that year. We'd already worked with her. I suppose done preschool at home, you might say, but we taught her to read and we taught her the basics. And so many other kids in that class were not anywhere near that level. They were doing basically preschool at age 5 or 6. So we knew she wasn't going to get any personal attention from that teacher, who was a nice teacher, and we were both public school graduates, and we had no problems with the public schools at that point, really. But we just knew our oldest was not necessarily going to learn much that year. And we had some good role models at our church who were homeschooling family, and they were very encouraging, and we just decided to try it and never look back.
Yeah, so we did year-round schooling. Well, the public school system did year-round schooling, so we started in July with her in kindergarten, and kind of toyed with the idea of homeschooling, but I personally knew it was going to be a big responsibility on my plate, and I just felt like I just really couldn't do it. But then I volunteered in her classroom, and I just saw the teacher just being overextended. She had 17 students, and some didn't know anything, didn't know their letters, some were did not speak English yet. They were, but they were still in the classroom. And so she just was, concentrating on those kids. Meanwhile, Mara, our oldest, was coloring. And so, I mean, it was fine. It was really good. I knew that there were going to be some good, very good things that would come of it. But I just, in the back of my mind, I thought, I wonder if we could do better at home. And so it was a little bit scary to even be thinking that that would be something that we would do. And at church, that a couple days later, our pastor mentioned that he homeschooled, his wife does. And I just thought, I didn't know that. They had 5 wonderful girls, and that was just the coolest thing. So I thought, you know, maybe I'll just ask if I can talk to his wife. But it just didn't, we didn't quite meet up in the at the end of the service. But then I was going to pick the kids up from nursery, and there he passed right by me. And so it just, I felt like God was just saying, you know, go up and ask. And so I did. And the next day I was in his living room talking to his wife, and she was showing me all different kinds of curriculum. And that's just exactly what God gave me, so that I felt comfortable enough that I knew I could do it. And then, yeah, we took it year by year after that. We just said one year at a time, and here we are. This is our 16th year. So, yep.
Awesome, thanks. Jones is your next.
Great. Again, boy, the similarity of the stories are really interesting to me as we were listening. We've been homeschooling for 19 years. Our oldest is 23. Our baby is 14. We have one out of college who's got a wonderful job up in Austin. We have 2 currently in college, 2 different schools, one in a public university and one in a private, and then 2 still at home, a senior, and as I said, our 14-year-old. I'll let Jackie, I'm a pediatrician. Jackie is a physical therapist by training, and has spent most of her career not doing physical therapy, but doing home education. So with that.
Yes, and so as a matter of fact, that's part of what I was going to say. I never in a million years, I finished my degree as a physical therapist, never imagined that I would be spending much of my time, so much of my years homeschooling. It was never a journey I anticipated, but God had other plans. And I really, truly do believe that. I've kept my license up all these years, but he's led me in this journey all along. And I'll just start off with what first got us thinking about it. We were living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and our oldest was 4. And then we had 2 younger children at the time. And we knew another family, kind of similar to y'all's, Matt and Sarah, y'all's story, but we knew a family who homeschooled. They had 3 children, and we used to do a lot of things with them. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's fine for them, but that's not us. But I used to politely interview all sorts of private schoolers, public schoolers, homeschoolers. And when it got to the homeschoolers, honestly, I would listen, But in my mind, I was like, no way am I doing that. But because I had no homeschool experience. I was totally raised in the public school. But when more on the reasons why, but similar to what Matt and Sarah said, and Scott and Mindy, I feel like the Lord began putting it on my heart, and I just couldn't shake it anymore. It just kept coming to my heart and to my mind. And I thought, okay, I really need to listen to what maybe the Holy Spirit is talking to me about this, and I really need to think about it. And again, like I mentioned, we were living in Washington, D.C. A lot of practicalities of other options for school were just not looking clear, not looking like the best option for us. So I mentioned it to Scott, and I said, what do you think about homeschooling? And he said to me, we're not one of those families. That's exactly what he said. And I just was like, okay, I could tell it wasn't getting anywhere. So what I didn't come with preconceived notions, but I prayed. I began praying for wisdom and direction, for this, for unity, for if it was to be private, public, or homeschool, that God would bring us to unity. And literally, I have journals every day for 6 months. I prayed, not God changed Scott's mind, not God changed my mind, but for unity. And at the end of 6 months, when our daughter was getting to be ready to go to kindergarten, several things happened. One, God put a guy in his life that he began listening to some audio that really changed his mind. It wasn't even about homeschooling, but it was about worldview. That impacted Scott. Two, we went to interview the public school down the road in Washington, D.C. They were changing the kindergarten program from half day to full day. And we asked, oh, what are you adding? And they were adding a new curriculum that addressed sex education. And we didn't really want our this was in Washington, D.C., and we didn't really want our kindergartner being exposed to some of these ideas. So, and then private school was very expensive. Anyway, at the end of 6 months, the only thing we were in unity on was homeschool. So we were going to try it for 1 year only. We thought we can't mess up kindergarten, but kind of like you, Sarah, we did it, and God just kept nudging us along. There have been seasons in my life after we had our 5th child, they were all 9 and younger. I thought, there is no way I can do this anymore, God. But after I took the leap of faith, God showed me how. He brought all these resources. He brought help into my life. But I had to take the leap of faith that truly God was calling me to do this before he showed me how he was going to work it all out. Let's see. I think my time's up. So I think that's good.
No, that's great. That's great. So that's their journeys. They're the little snippet of how God brought them to this. And there's probably so much more to each one of their stories. But obviously, the Holy Spirit led them to this decision. And so, throughout the evening, that's what we'll be talking about is homeschooling. And is that the best option for your family? But in no way, if we don't want to say that it's the only option for someone's family, because there's all kinds of different ways that families can educate their children. So let's just dive into it. I don't know why I'm wasting time here. I don't want to do that. Okay, so we're going to start on some topics. Now, this is something that we talked about before we met with you guys last week. We just kind of addressed some of the things that are that come to mind, the general questions that come to mind. And so they're going to take a topic. Each family is going to take a topic and just briefly go over it. This is probably where some of your questions are going to get answered, or more questions are going to come up. So like I said, if you hopped on late, then if you've got questions, write them down. And when we get to the time, you'll just unmute yourself when it's the Q&A time. Unmute yourself and just share your question. Or if you don't already know, this is being recorded. So if you don't want to hear yourself or you don't want to be recorded, then you can private message me the question and I'll ask it for you, or you can put questions in the chat. So let's go ahead and start with Matt and Sarah. They're going to talk about reasons to educate.
Okay, guys. It is interesting to see and to hear how much of our stories are similar. I'm like you, Scott Jones. I was like, we're not one of those families. And I even made Sarah promise me that because I was so skeptical about it, I was like, okay, their pants have to come low enough on their ankles and no high waters. And that we have to have good haircuts and can't, where you just become one of those socially awkward kids. I had this view of homeschooling that they were just awkward and difficult, and I didn't want to set my kids up for that. But our topic really is going to be about the reasons we chose to homeschool. And when it comes to the reasons to choose homeschooling, our reasons are going to be probably similar to ones you would choose if you made that choice, but they may not be exactly the same. And everybody's motivation to choose to homeschool is going to be a little bit different, and their path there is going to be different. But a lot of it, there's overlap in a lot of it. And so for us, the first thing is just that our philosophy of parenting led us to homeschooling. we take seriously what the Bible says about parenting, that you should train up children in the way they should go, that children are a heritage from the Lord. They're a blessing.
Teach them diligently.
Yeah, sending our blessings off to someone else just feels like we're abdicating our responsibility. If my children spend more of their waking hours away from me than with me, that feels like we're not taking seriously the responsibility that God has given us. And so we see parenting as a privilege and a responsibility that we have to prepare these children, because they're going to spend more of their life outside of our homes, God, Lord willing, than they are going to spend in our homes, right?
They don't have the option to come back. It's not a boomerang situation here.
I meant that they would live long enough for that.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So because we have this privilege and responsibility to train our children and prepare them for the life that God has prepared them for, we want to do everything we can to form them, to equip them, to mold and shape and shepherd their hearts. And so all of those things are best done in our home. They're not best done by someone else outside of our view of what's happening. And so kind of out of our philosophy of parenting, we also have a view of discipleship that's really clear, that Deuteronomy 6 tells us that we are to impress or imprint or tattoo upon the hearts of our children the things that we believe, the things that we know to be true about the great God that we serve. And so in order for us to do that, we can't do it with Sunday school and a few devotions before bed. Like, we think that this is how you think about everything in life, every sphere, every domain. We want them to see that through the lens of Scripture. And so one of my primary hesitations initially was, the school is a mission field. And we need to connect. Our kids need to be connecting with non-believers, and we need to be pursuing relationships with them. And we had some friends that were homeschooling that kind of challenged my thinking in a way that really changed my thinking. And they said, would you send a missionary onto the mission field if they didn't know Jesus yet? Can they be light to people if they don't yet have the Spirit of God? And in fact, okay, maybe my child does come to know the Lord at 8 or 9 or something, and would I send them then? Well, I still wouldn't send them without being equipped and trained. And so in order to launch our children out as arrows to be, kingdom advancing, culture changing, courageous living disciples, we feel like there's a necessary process of formation and equipping and training that they need to receive. And they're not going to receive that in the way that they need it under the instruction of someone else. And so we just felt like it was our responsibility to step in and to begin schooling at home. And so another motivation beyond that.
So the academics. This honestly, unfortunately, was probably one of my primary focuses, and the Lord has shaped my heart more towards the discipleship aspect. But in my mind, I didn't receive a great education in public school. It's a little bit shameful, and maybe some of those things were presented and I didn't catch them, but I've definitely been able to redeem a lot of my education because of the opportunity to teach my children. And so for me, the opportunity to give them better. And so one of the mantras that we have received and are really holding fast to is presenting and teaching our children what is true, good, and beautiful, and that all truth is God's, right? And so whether it's how to diagram a sentence or dissect an owl pellet, whatever it is, that is God's, because He has created truth. He is the creator of all truth. And so seeing all things through the lens of a biblical worldview and the beauty of that, and wanting to challenge them to know more. And so then there's this idea of their young years. We all know as parents that children are sponges. Like young children, they are absorbing all the things you don't want them to, right? Like all the things that you're like, don't repeat that. And they are sponges ready to absorb. And so our goal and our aim is to pack them full of truth, of goodness, and of beauty. And so I can't do that if they're away from me 8 hours a day. Mindy said that there were like 17 kids in that kindergarten class, and I think that's actually a pretty low number. I have a few friends that are kindergarten teachers, and they have between 26 and 30 students. And there's no way, this is one of the things that did convince me, is even if I'm gonna fumble and mess things up, my kid's gonna get exponentially more one-on-one time from me than they would from the most well-meaning teacher. And that this is not a slight against teachers or educators at all, but one, I know my children better than anyone else will. I love my children more than anyone else will. And I have more time to give to them, because even if I have 5 kids and that's a large family, it's still exponentially smaller than any classroom they're going to be in. And so one of our other goals is that we want to create lifelong learners. We don't want this to be this is what we do from 8 to 3 every day. This is a lifetime of filling the mind that God has given me. And so I'm trying to wrap it up because I don't want to go over my time. One other thing is, if you enroll in a school, whether it's public or private, you have no authority over what your children are learning. You don't get to decide what they're taught or when they're taught it. And often in these days, they don't want you to know. I'm seeing more and more school systems saying it is none of your business and you need to stay out. And that, let me also just say, that is new. That is not historically the way education has been in America. Really, there was a major shift in the late 1800s, or about 100 years ago. So that's a history lesson for another time. Finally, I just want to wrap it up real quick and say, know your reason. You have to have a good foundation for why am I doing this? Because there are going to be really hard days. Jackie talked about having that 5th kid, and I have days that I remember sobbing in my laundry room saying, God, I don't even know if I can go make lunch. I can't do this. It's so hard. And he brings me back to, it is your privilege and your responsibility to shepherd those blessings that I've given you, and I will sustain you. I will. He is with us wherever we go. And so your why can't be fear of the virus. It can't be fear of what they might be taught or exposed to. Fear is never a solid foundation to stand on, but standing on the promises of Scripture and the assurance that God has called you and equipped you. He has given you these children, and so he's going to see you through whatever he's called you to. Finally, homeschooling will refine you and shape you as an adult and a Christ follower more than anything I have ever experienced in my life. I have had to lean harder on Jesus more because of homeschooling than any other experience in my life. Peace out. Go, Michelle.
So it's not just forming your children, it's forming you.
Absolutely.
And so everybody who's ever taught a Bible study or done any leading of any kind, you know that you gain as much or more than the participants. And the same thing happens with homeschooling. You benefit more than your kids do. So, all right.
So good. That was really good. Thanks, guys. Remember, write your questions down or send them to me if you have any. But the Thomases are up next. Their topic is how to educate.
Did we get it unmuted? Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about how, I think, so let's first just talk about curriculum, and that's a personal choice. So there's so much on the internet right now. I had that veteran mom sitting on the couch with me, and that was so wonderful, especially because back then, like, the internet was like a snail and we didn't have very good access, and so that just was really not an option, but it is now. So you can get on and research different curricula out there and different teaching models, and what you really want your day to look like, or year. So that's one thing. However, I do have some wisdom from all these years of homeschooling, so that's what I want to provide this evening. So one thing is, I have seen how we've done it, and I've seen how some other families that have done it that have come alongside us. And I think probably the best way to go about doing year after year is to just stick with what works. So there are curriculum fairs out there, and you can be overwhelmed by the enormous amount of stuff that you can teach your kids. And then you can be left feeling like you're not enough and what you're doing is not enough. And so I had a friend who year after year would just change things up. And then she'd always go back to what she first started with. So whatever you choose is not going to be perfect. There are going to be holes. It might not even be perfect for your child. And in that case, you might want to pick something different. But just in general, I think we have a tendency to get bored. And so that might instigate some sort of change. But I would say stick with it. We've done that. And, I'm reading the same read aloud, like the 6th time this year, and that's okay. So that's one thing. And then also, how does your day look? So for us, we have a big family. We're all over the place. But going back, so, most people don't have this many kids. So going back to when we first started, we had 4 kids. And I wanted to do the very best I could. And so I had a schedule all set out. And from 8 to 8:30, we were going to do math. And 8:30 to 9 o'clock, we were going to do some reading. And so what ended up happening is total frustration because Mara was not getting our math lesson in 30 minutes. And so I was stuck feeling frustrated because she wasn't understanding, trying to come up with other ways to explain it. And then also, like, my clock, it's 8:40 now, and that's going to mess up my whole morning. And so I would let things go. So have goals for your day. What do you want to accomplish today? And then what do you have that's going on in addition to schooling? Because schooling is going to take, for each kid, if they're elementary, 2 to 3 hours. If they're middle, maybe 3 to 4. High school will be more, just depending on what's going on paper-wise. Sometimes some weeks are heavy, some weeks are later, but that's so anyway, so I think the best thing is just to model your day around your life. So if you have to go to the grocery store, figure out when you're going to go to the grocery store and do your schooling in between. And we also have always had a little person who's getting into stuff and making messes and has diapers that need to be changed, and you're pulled away and there's just nothing you can do about it. And so that also can be a sense of frustration. And so you just have to go with it and be okay with that. And also, like you said, Sarah, there are days when you're pulling out your hair. And last week I had one. Reed, he's 5. He did not want to do his work. And so he's laying on the floor, sucking his thumb, telling me he just can't. But yesterday he was doing fine and he could. But today he just doesn't want to, so he's saying he can't. So, those days are going to happen, and they might even be way worse than that. And you just have to know that it's all for the greater good, and that you will have a better day tomorrow, and maybe even a better day the next day. Okay, so we have done a mix of teaching at home and some online stuff as our kids have gotten into middle school, upper elementary, and then in high school, we've done a lot of online and a little bit at home. And then we've also done always some sort of a co-op enrichment sort of situation. So we first started homeschooling in the Denver, Colorado area, and they had, through the public schools, a 1-day-a-week program, and that's where we first got Mara started. So it was 1 day a week, drop her off. She does a little bit of enrichment stuff, art, Spanish, science, experiments, PE, things that are a little bit harder to do at home. And then also that's where she would have her little buddies. So even though we had 10 kids, they all really like to be with other kids that don't belong in our house. And so I do think that's important one way or another, to be either reaching out in finding a homeschool group you can do field trips with, or going to some sort of a set program that is more formal. In San Antonio, you have to pay for those unless it's a co-op. And a co-op is where parents get together and teach their kids together. And so it's minimal cost, usually just the cost of the church or t-shirts, that kind of thing. So that's much more reasonable. I didn't check my time.
That's good.
So we went taking it 1 year at a time until we got to middle school, and then we did not want to throw our kids to the wolves, we felt like. So it every year was great. And so how did we know that? Well, you can see what your kids are doing. And that was one thing that I felt uncomfortable about when we were doing public school is Mara would come home, 5-year-old little Mara, and I would say, what'd you do today? And she just really didn't have a very good idea of what she did. And so I had no idea how to help her learn. And I remember also not knowing how to teach her how to read, but she was ready. And I talked to the school teacher, and she's like, I don't really have an idea of what book you could look at. And so that was kind of a struggle. So I forgot, I got sidetracked. I don't know what I was.
Co-ops and
Okay. So anyway, so well, I don't know. I'll just move on because I got distracted. So I do freezer meals once a month, and I didn't always do that. But you have to figure out how, if you are busy all during the day, homeschooling, or if you have a doctor appointment that you have to go to, how you're going to fit dinner into the schedule. So I do freezer meals once a month, and that's been wonderful. So that I just pull something out of the freezer and we're good to go. Before, when we had fewer kids, I would just make a menu for the week, do the shopping on the weekend, and then it would be ready to go in the refrigerator. So that's just a little bit of organizing that you're going to have to do if you do decide to homeschool. Of course, there are other ways to do it, and it doesn't have to always go like that, but that's just been what has worked for me. One nice thing about the homeschooling situation is that you can school when it's convenient. And so we have often done like a year-round school sort of situation where it's the 100-degree weather in July. Well, that's when we start school, and we'll school for a few weeks, and grandmas and grandpas will come visit. We'll take a week off or 2 weeks because we can, or we go on a family trip, and so then we can just take off during that time. One of the great things about homeschooling is if you are on vacation, you can pull in whatever history you're working on and just make it relative to what they're seeing. And we did a DC trip and a Boston trip, and so those all were worked into our homeschool, and we were able to do that because we knew what was being taught in our classroom. Let's see, combining grades. So I have a bunch of kiddos that are 14, 16 months apart. And so because they were close in age, it just made sense to combine them into one grade. With our oldest two, they graduated the same year. The next bunch, they were together until 8th grade. And then we had my son not repeat 8th grade, but that's kind of how we thought of it. He just did a lot of extra work that his sister didn't have to do in order to graduate from high school, so that he did not graduate at 16 years old, because that's what would have ended up happening. So, but I highly recommend that, because that will make your day much more sane. It's very hard to do 4 different separate curricula and make it through your day without anything else going on, because that's going to be all you're doing if you're teaching 4 grades. So we do a lot of combining, and except for this is the nice thing about homeschooling is you can tailor the math or the reading to the child. So you can teach a history curricula that's good for 3 different kiddos. You can read aloud to those 3 little kiddos, but then you can separate them when they need to. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I just have a couple things to say. I wanted to go over the legal compliance issues. People are wondering about whether, homeschooling is legal, but what do you have to do to comply with the laws around it? Before I get into that, I just want to emphasize what she was saying. It's flexible. You're in control. And that's what I think you heard that from Matt and Sarah too. The parent is in control, and that comes with its benefits and its headaches too, because you can't pass the kid off to somebody else. It's you. And when they have those bad days and they don't want to do their work, it's you. Typically, at least in our families, it's the mom who's dealing with that. And that makes it very hard. But you get all the full benefits of that too. All the flexibility that you want in your day. You may be able to get your work done with your kid in 2 or 3 hours. And then you get the whole rest of the day with your kid just to have fun and teach them how to be a good person the way you want them to be. You're not stuck to a public school or private school schedule. You take spring break when you want to take spring break. You can make Christmas break as long as you want it to be. If you want to, our kids do double school sometimes. So, if we want to have them take an extra long Christmas break, for example, they'll just double up their work. And instead of 3 or 4 hours, they'll do 6 or 8 hours of work, but over the course of a week, but then they've earned another week of just vacation. So you're in charge, and that's liberating, but it's a lot of responsibility. But the bottom line is who's going to be better equipped to take care of that little kid and give him or her what is best for her. That's the parent, at least in my opinion. So homeschooling in Texas is legally very simple. Texas has a private school law, and homeschools operate as private schools. The requirements are minimal. Any I think well-meaning parent who homeschools in good faith will easily meet all the state requirements. You have to teach certain subjects, which everyone's teach anyway, spelling and grammar and reading and math. I don't even think history and science are legally required, but of course, again, every well-meaning parent who wants their kid to do well is going to add history and science. And that's what those curricula are there for. That's your structure. That's the skeleton upon which you can structure your whole education. You don't have to do it yourself. There's a lot of curriculum options that will show you how to do it. And some of them are very detailed. They'll take you step by step by step with very little planning. And as people get more experience, they choose to take on more planning responsibility themselves because they know what's going to work for themselves and their family. But at the beginning, you can buy curricula that just almost do every little thing for you. Every day's lesson plan is already done. You just check the boxes after the worksheets are done. So you can start off without a whole lot of planning on your part. I would also say that just about anybody is equipped to educate their kid, especially in the elementary grades. And I don't want to sound too derogatory, but I knew a lot of education majors in college. This was a long time ago, but they're not experts in any of their subject fields. They learn how to manage a classroom. They learn how to lesson plan, and that's fine, but they're not experts in arithmetic. They're not experts like our original kindergarten teacher. They're not experts in teaching a kid to read. You can read, any parent can teach their kid how to do pretty much everything in elementary school. And as the kids get older, there may be subjects that the parents aren't able to do. That's fine. That's where other resources can come in. As far as the legal issues, there is no statewide test. There's no testing mandated on private schoolers or homeschoolers for that matter. We always did testing. We used the Iowa tests, which we had taken as little kids, ITBS, some of you might remember from a long time ago. They're still around. You can do testing on your kids. We would do it every 2 or 3 years, every other year, I think, every other grade, to feedback for ourselves. How are we doing? Are our kids on track? And they were always on track and then some, and that's why we had to slow them down so they didn't graduate too early. So the legal requirements are minimal. Any questions about that at all, people should join the HSLDA. We can send out the link. It's a wonderful organization which really was pioneering the legality of homeschooling. They even to this day, they still fight legal battles, court battles, as necessary to defend the right of parents to educate their own children. When child protective service complaints come up, educational neglect complaints come up, HSLDA is there for their members. And I would highly recommend it. It's not just a legal defense association. It's a total resource for everything associated with homeschooling, at least on a general area. They're not going to go down to the local area and tell us what's in your local area. But I'll send out that link, and everybody, I would really encourage everyone to look at it, even if you don't join that particular organization. I think we went over time.
Okay, Scott. But yeah, put the link in the chat. and Matt or the Moores and the Thomases, will you guys also put your email addresses in the chat? And I'll reference those in just a little bit. But Joneses, you're up, and go. Don't skimp on anything. Go over. Their topic is the misconceptions about homeschooling. Go ahead.
Okay, so we will talk about that. I'm going to hand it over to Scott here in a second. But first, I want to say, listening to Mindy, you're so organized. I felt organized, but I was nothing compared to Mindy. So if God has called you to homeschool, you do not have to be any certain way. God just makes it work. I loved one of the things. So Mindy, hats off to you, but I'm not that organized. And as far as freezer meals, okay, no, I never did freezer meals, and we managed. We got good, healthy kids. But I think just to reiterate one thing, I loved what you said, Sarah, about teaching them a love for learning. And I think that's hopefully I'll have more chance to talk about it after I turn it over to Scott for a minute.
Great. Well, thank you. And I'm going to cover just a few common misperceptions, and everybody who's in the homeschooling world certainly knows about them. In fact, you can anticipate that question within a few moments if somebody dares to ask it, and they're already asking it. The first is that of socialization. So I'll cover that. The other is that all homeschooling is at home. The other is college preparedness. That's one of the other key ones. So those are the three, and I'm sure there's others. But of course, one of the ways that I kind of deal with the socialization question after I bite my tongue a little bit is that, actually, everyone's child is going to be socialized, including homeschooled children. So really the right question that I like to phrase it is, the question is by who and what are they going to be socialized to? And one of the things that kind of helped me a little bit as I thought about it is, who do you want your kids to emulate? And also another ways that I phrased it and a friend kind of gave to me was, what is normal about anybody spending the 6 to 8 hours a day with people all their age who at the same development level, same behavior, and the same ideas of what normal is? That's not life. That's actually an aberrant culture and an aberrant situation. And so for us, what we found is we engaged with homeschoolers, and we were very fortunate, just so you know, in that my older brother had gone there before us and his 3 kids, and our engagement with them really made it easy for my side of the family. I can tell you it was much more difficult for my wife and her side of the family, because my parents and everybody looked at my brother's 3 kids and said, wow, they didn't know my brother and his 3 kids. So, this whole idea of, and oh, by the way, she mentioned as a pediatrician, unfortunately, some of the folks that I would see, I had already developed in my mind what homeschoolers were, and I saw some of those, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no way. I'm not going to be one of those families. And that's where, I won't go back into that again. But the point is, again, what we saw were kids that were much better, and I saw it in my brother's kids and others, that could look an adult in the face, look them in the eyes, and have a communication. Why? Because that's who they're having to look at all the time in the face and have communication around their schooling, their discipline, and everything else, their parents. If they're in co-ops, they're in a much more multi-generational situation, whereas they haven't learned it's not cool to talk to their to their younger sibling. They have to talk to the younger sibling. That's who's part of the household and with them all of the time. And so this idea of multi-generational speaking, and oh, by the way, and I'm sure the Thomases do more than anything else, how often are your kids saying, hey, go help and engage with, and not even just tolerate them, but be part of the solution in the household? Sort of generates this idea of service, serving one another, working with another, and socializing and communicating either up, down, or horizontally. And if you think about what is the normal work situation in life, it isn't a bunch of 21 or 28, 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds who spend their whole time together. It's multi-generational. And so in some sense, I think it begins to prepare. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I think it really does prepare them for understanding how to speak and to engage with others, either younger, older, or the same age. So that's kind of my thoughts about socialization. As far as the issue of what is homeschooling, I think I'm going to say it really carefully. When people say, oh, you homeschool, I'm like, well, you know, by the time most of our kids have gotten into later years of high school, almost all of their homeschooling is out of the home. It's been with co-ops, it's been online, it's been more like virtual school, and a hybrid of some of the above. Again, some homeschoolers don't do it that way. They do everything at home. We've turned over more to others, yet we know those others and we engage with them on a regular basis. And so there's really, and in my business, I get to talk to families about this all the time. I said, when somebody, I'll tell our residents, I do education and training, when somebody says they're homeschooling, you need to ask them, what do you mean by that? And that's really one of the first conversations I have when somebody goes, I homeschool. I go, well, what do you mean by that? Because you'll find that there's all kinds of preconceptions even I have, and it may not be what they're doing. Then the other is college preparedness. I think the answer as far as kiddos has been totally debunked, and it's been debunked, I think, by publications in the Journal of College Admissions. Some of the earlier studies showed that homeschool students had higher ACTs, GPAs, graduation rates. They start off with more credits when they go into college. Many of, I will tell you some subsequent studies, though, that I think were fair, that really more looked at the social economic status of homeschool families versus public school homeschool families. You haven't seen that much of a difference. In other words, some of those differences go away, but I think what I can clearly tell you is they don't do worse. And so when they look at social economic status and other things, they at least do as well. Many of them come in with 14 to 15 hours of college credit going in to college. So for instance, many we have experienced have spent their last 1 or 2 years going to junior colleges and pulling in college credits, which I think prepares them. And then I think another thing that people don't think about, what is college like? College is more like our co-ops. Our co-ops where they go to class once to twice a week, they get their homework, and then they have to spend the rest of the time figuring out their time and how to get ready and prepare for a test. It's not going to college class every day. And what we have found is that our kids in college have, in fact, they comment to us all the time, Dad, Mom, we were so ready for college because it's homeschool. It's going to co-op and you got to figure it out. You know, it's not crazy different than what life is as far as when you go out there. And now, what about getting into elite colleges? I like to talk about that. Now, I can tell you, Jackie and I were in the Northeast for a while, and I'll tell you, to me, it saddens. They wear, and especially in the environment we walked around in, they wear their kids on their sleeves about, well, my kid got into. It's one of the first conversations that we come up to, and they all speak to the elite schools their kids can get into. And I'll be honest, that turned me off, just watching that so much in the DC area. And even as I'm gonna brag a little bit, and I have to, I'll just say though, you know what's more important to us and has always been more important to us as parents, that in the end and through their schooling, our kids would be grounded in their faith, love the Lord, and serve Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's been
Top.
Most important and top, even in their accomplishments. But back to socialization, our oldest daughter was the vice president of the student body. Our next daughter was the president of the freshman class at her university. We did a poor job in socialization there. Our next daughter is at A&M. She's in public university and has a 4.0 in the engineering school after the first year. My brother's child graduated law review from SMU Law School. Our speech and debate club, which we are on the parent board here in town, we have one of the kids in our club that is in Harvard Law School right now, and one of our person who graduated just a year after just finished her freshman year at Harvard in undergrad. Now, so I hope you captured my other comment earlier. That's not what we're after, and that's never what we were after with our kids. But I think I had to debunk myths. Hopefully you see that it really is leaning into feeling called to. And the other final comment I would say is we looked at every year and we always said, and I remember, and I loved Randy Frazee when he would say, we've homeschooled, public schooled, and private schooled our kids. And that gave us great freedom as parents all the time. So, you know what? We can relook at this. And what would we do if one of our kids came and said, hey, I want to go to school, Dad? We would. Now, in the end, we threatened our kids by saying we're going to send them to school. But, you know, that's was for us. But that being said, I just put that out there and I'll let it go.
Jackie?
I'll just leave it at that because I think we're almost out of time. So we could talk about this all day long. But I will just say, yes, that we had fun doing it. And in high school, one of the most amazing things, it kind of turned more into a mentor role because the kids did get so good at learning, seeking knowledge and a desire. And now that they're even our oldest graduated from college, just continued conversation, rich, deep conversations because of that love to integrate in this world and to continue learning. So I'll just leave it with that.
That was great. That was like, I'm even, you know, and I'm saying this, I'm not considering homeschooling, but I've written a lot of notes. So this is really good information. Thank you guys. I do have, there's a question in the chat. And like I said, if you guys have any questions after I ask this one, we might just be silent for a minute, but you guys speak up. We'll go a little bit past our time. But you've also got their contact information in the chat, and then that link that Scott sent out is going to have good information. So Lauren Taylor she had to hop off, but she says, what are some suggestions for co-ops for elementary in and around San Antonio? Any of you guys can answer that.
I will just quickly say, unfortunately, because of COVID, as we like to say in our house, COVID ruins everything. A lot of co-ops are not meeting this year. We participate in Classical Conversations, which is like a co-op on steroids because it provides the bulk of our curriculum, but we meet once a week, and we are meeting in person. Our community is full, so I can't invite you. Because we have a limited capacity and all that, but there are others around the city that are meeting, and I know that if you go to the San Antonio Homeschoolers Facebook group, there's been a lot of chatter about co-ops on there, and so I would check that out. But Mindy, did you tell me y'all are in some that are meeting?
So yeah, we've done a few in San Antonio. One just our main one just shut down this last year, Kingdom Bound. We are currently trying our very first actual co-op. In the past, we have paid for a day when I get to do grocery shopping or a Target run or whatever without 10 children. So this year we had 7 that were going to be in the program, and it was so expensive. So we're trying something different, and I will be teaching alongside other parents. So that one is actually full. It's Alamo Area Co-op, and I know I'm going to group me with them, and I've heard that they have a couple already on a wait list, and I think it's the same thing. All of these parents are coming into this situation where maybe they should homeschool, and these programs are kind of being flooded. Another one that is not a co-op, it's a paid program that's 1 day a week, and it's piecemeal. You can pick a class here, pick a class there. It's not, anyway, so that's Bernie Area Christian Homeschoolers. Jackie, did you do, I know there's Hack Day, there's Feast, Pack Day, I think. Is it Pack?
I didn't ever do those, but I have good friends who've done them and been very pleased. I did do something called Teams, which is no longer meeting this year. And then, but we currently do something called, it used to be part of Feast, but it's called Facet now, F-A-C-E-T. But it's really more geared towards high school, but they do have some elementary school classes. It's not really as much of a co-op as it is paid teachers. So there's all, and then there's another one we've done, Friday school, which had some good classes when we did it.
And then there's also what is it? Infinity. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. There was Summit, and then I think it turned into something else. Anyway, there are a couple of 2-day programs, and it's more of a situation where you go 2 days a week, and then they give you the school for the other 3 days of the week. So you're not choosing your curriculum, and then just so most of them are extracurricular, or for high school where you're looking for a biology or a physics that you do not want to teach, or an English or whatever. But these are more like kind of a morph between private school and homeschool. So you're there a little bit longer than you would normally be, and everything's covered, and you get sent home with work. There are a couple, they're on I-10. I don't know them off the top of my head. I'm not sure if one is still Summit. I feel like one is Infinity, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. I want to move on to some more. I put some of the co-op names that you guys mentioned in the chat, and I'll like keep them stowed away so that we won't send it out to everybody. But if somebody asks or someone contacts me, then I've got some names I can give them. Another question was from Aaron.
While you're looking, can we ask?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
A couple things that we had, and Mindy, you talked about this earlier, and y'all have these beautiful big families. We have 2. Haven is in 1st grade, and Pax is 2. So talk to me more about multi-level learning and how to either engage or keep him away or distract. Yes, that's the right word to say. For our family situation, something that y'all have done. I know Sarah has had to deal with me sending her messages of saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And she's been so extremely helpful and encouraging. But talk to me more about multi-level learning, if you don't mind, any of y'all.
I think nap time is your friend. That definitely use that nap time. And also for a 1st grader, it's not going to take very long. And then I would also engage your 1st grader early in the morning when your toddler is fresher and maybe will be more interested in eating breakfast or playing. That would be a good time. If you do reading aloud, that would be a good time to read aloud. I do that often when my kids are eating. I'll sit there and read to them and then eat later. That actually is one thing I had to give up as a homeschooler, was sitting and eating and enjoying my food for any length of time. So, but that's okay, it's worth it. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think starting off fresh in the morning, we do read aloud and devotion, and we do that all together. I mean, I have a 3-year-old that's potty training, and that's, it's a lot. So, and then he is demanding to do school right now because that's what he sees 4 brothers doing. And so I have just scrounged around and found old random, like half colored in workbooks and things and been like, this is your school book.
I might need help with that.
Yeah, he thinks it's so great. Like he thinks Dollar Tree activities and Dollar Tree workbooks, and say, that's for you, Baba. And that'll buy 15 minutes and boom, you're done with handwriting. And so you just, yeah, and really realistic expectations. 1st grade, max 2 hours, like really, and does not need to be 2 consecutive hours. 20 minutes here, 40 minutes there. And at that age, you should still be getting to sleep during nap time. If it's only 2 of them.
I agree with exactly what you're saying, Sarah. I think there's so many, that's part of the misconceptions, that because a 1st graders would go to school from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, we think they have to be doing school all during that time. But when my daughter was in preschool, I would ask her what was her favorite thing she did, and she'd tell me snack time, and recess, because those times take up a tremendous amount of time. So you don't have to be filling every single thing in. You can get it done in so much less time.
And Sarah was joking about it, like the little guys wanting to participate, but you start to really see that they have a love of learning because they're brothers, even if they complain. Like they're watching kids learn from an early age. And so the influence of siblings upon siblings, I mean, the Joneses, you touched on this, but it really is massive. You know, their friendships that bond, that form, and the ability to be helpful and intergenerational. And so one of the intergenerational benefits is that Pax is going to watch Haven learn, and he's going to watch her go to school and do her work, and he's going to have an appetite for that by the time he's ready to do it, and maybe even before. So I guess my final thing there, don't see it as a bad thing. See, it's an opportunity. It's a benefit to this, not a challenge, even though it is a challenge.
They're good answers. You guys are just a little passionate about it, which is good. Okay, I'm gonna have Scott Jones. Will you briefly answer this question from Aaron? How do you ensure that universities will recognize your education, or do you have to take your GED in order to apply for college?
No, I mean, and Jackie can answer this too, but no, you don't have to take a GED. They do recognize and they do accept your transcript. I will tell you though, very critical is your SAT scores and your ACT scores. That's really what it's going to come down to. That's what they're going to look to. The frustrating thing is, honestly, they don't pay a lot of attention to your transcript, I don't think. And I only say that because our first kid, I think, graduated and they never asked for the final transcript. At the final transcript at her university. She did extraordinarily well. All of our kids have. Our second one, they did come back, same school. They said, give us the final transcript. I go, wow, we had to put it together. No, I mean, so obviously, you know, we do put the transcripts, we do have it, and we do try to reflect, you know, what they've done. But it really comes down to your SATs and your ACTs. And that being said, we do spend a bit of time on trying to get those scores up. But I think that's been our experience. The Thomases, do you have anything different with that? Probably same thing.
Nothing to add, Thomases, to that? Okay. Then I'll let you pick whoever wants to answer this one briefly as well, and then I'm gonna just make sure that there's nobody else that has any questions. What have been some of your favorite curriculums for elementary school math and language arts? Y'all are all waiting. You're like, who's gonna answer?
So we have stuck with, like I said, Singapore math. It's I guess what they use in Singapore. But anyway, the workbooks are very inexpensive, which is what was really nice at the very beginning when we were living on a resident salary. And then they just seem to work. The whole idea around the Singapore math is mental math. So it gives them those skills that they're going to use into adulthood in doing that math while they're in the store or sitting at the table in, you know, a restaurant, that kind of thing. It seems intuitive to me. It's done well. So that's what we've stuck with. There are lots and lots of choices out there. I know that one thing people don't like about Singapore is that there's not enough repetition. And so people who do that, who say that, are generally people who use a BECA. And so that's a lot more repetition. And then once we hit 6th grade, we go to teaching textbooks, and that's what's worked for us. As far as language arts, we do rod and staff for grammar because I just personally prefer the method. There's Shirley Grammar, and then I'm sure y'all can chime in with some others, but those are really intense, time-consuming, and I think we're getting across what we need to with the rod and staff. It's also inexpensive, but in terms of teaching, grammar was really not my greatest subject, and so it makes it easy for me to teach my kiddos. And then we do a lot of reading. I read to them every single day, many times a day. I read chapter books, I read storybooks, and then they also all have to read to me until they're capable of reading at a level where I feel like they're not going to need assistance with those hard words. And then there's Wordly Wise for vocabulary and Explode the Code for those early phonics for a younger elementary student who's just learning how to read. So that's what we do. We also do spelling. I think it's a reason for spelling. So.
We also do Singapore math, but I started our very first kindergarten year with a full box of Abeka because, again, I needed the full script and I needed to be told what to do, and Abeka provided that. Abeka is much more workbook, traditional school style, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's used in a lot of private schools. It's a great curriculum, but as we've kind of shifted over the years, I did order it. It is also inexpensive. I did order the math book, and just math for my kindergartner this year because it was $14, and Singapore doesn't have a kindergarten. They start with level 1. And so I just thought we'll just start there, but he's already, yeah, that's irrelevant. So, okay. So then we do Singapore through 6th grade. And this year instead of switching to teaching textbooks, we are switching to Saxon, which can be, a lot of the criticism there is that there's too much repetition and it's boring. But my 6th grader begged for it. So you do with that what you want. Language arts, we've done several different things. Again, like I said, classical conversations is really the backbone of our curriculum and has a fantastic language arts program and memory work that leads up to that 4th through 6th grade program. In preparation for that, we did first language lessons for grammar, and we did writing with ease for like writing. I am not good at teaching spelling. That's just basically the truth of it. I've probably bought 6 different curriculums and never finished one of them. So we're just gonna lean on spell check a lot. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but really, and same as Mindy, we read and read some more, and then we read a little bit more after that. And so having great books in the home, and really what I've come to learn is, I think them seeing, and it's not always 100% true, but seeing words spelled correctly, becoming good readers, and having a strong foundation in phonics. Now, I will say my 3rd son is 7, seems to be, we have not officially had him tested, but seems to be dyslexic. And so I was beating my head against a wall trying to teach him to read, and we were both struggling. And so last year we started Logic of English, which is a pricey program, but it includes phonics, spelling, and handwriting. And it's kind of, you can kind of justify it saying you're getting 3 subjects in one, but it is more thorough than any other that I've seen. I do understand that All About Reading is similar, but it does not include a handwriting component to it. And so this seems to be clicking. This seems to be really building so much more of a foundation than my other boys got. And they were just early readers that kind of taught themselves. I just nudged them. So it's been a whole different ballgame with this kid, but that's the beauty. And so, yeah. Oh, IEW is another one. The Institute for Excellence in Writing is a fantastic writing program. Okay.
Awesome, thank you. And the Joneses, you guys put in the chat, in high school, you highly recommend Worldviews of the Western World. Of all the curriculums of college plus kids, point out how much this has prepared them for life and current issues. I think you guys gave really great resources. I think it's awesome. This is a lot of information, and there is absolutely no way that we will or can cover everything homeschool related in this hour, and it's going on an hour and a half now. But this was a lot of really good information, I think. I'm gonna wrap things up right now, but I want to remind you guys that the Thomases, the Moores, and the Jones have made themselves available, and their information is in the chat of how you can get in contact with them. I want to just throw this out there. It's just an idea, but if you're interested in having just this community of other believers and a part of the same church, the same circle of people, but just pray about just starting a group, just pray about doing that, of people who are maybe just stepping in for the first time, of, trying to figure out this homeschool situation. I would say that could be one of your best resources out there. I'm sure the Moores, the Thomases, and the Joneses, the way they got through this was by having community of people who've been through it already. And you all know, and you all have been a part of the church long enough that you know that we can help you with that. We can support you in all of that. So you can contact me for that. You can contact Matt. You can contact Selma. But we would be more than happy to help you get that community going and some kind of an official capacity. So anyway, but I want to just thank the Thomases and the Moores and the Joneses for joining us tonight. I was like, this is going to be quick. You guys have all the, we're not going to have all the answers. We're not going to be able to give all the information we can, but they gave us a lot of really good information to get either started with or to continue with wherever you're at in your journey. So thank you guys so much. And your passion behind it is very inspiring. So I'm thankful for you guys. But before we get off of here, I'm going to pray, and then we'll end our evening, okay? So God, thank you. Lord, thank you for this conversation that we've been able to have tonight. Lord, you have empowered each of these parents, each of these families with everything that they need in order to educate their children, to be the spiritual leaders of their homes, to be the main spiritual influence in the lives of their children. So God, wherever each of these families are at, Lord, you've promised that you will give them wisdom. So God, would they go to you before making any decision of what the next step needs to be when it comes to the education of their children? Lord, would they go to you and ask you for that wisdom? And Lord, just like what Jackie said, would they be unified in whatever decision that needs to be made for their families? God, would they be unified in that? But most of all, Lord, would you just encourage the hearts of the families that are in here right now? God, when the parenting side, aside from school, when parenting just gets really hard, when life gets really hard, which causes parenting to get even harder, Lord, would you step in when we as parents just don't know what else to do? Lord, would you step in? Would you rescue us from those situations, God? And would you give us hope? Lord, we love you so much, and we just thank you for the families that are here tonight, and for the 3 families that represented you so well in this conversation. Lord, we love you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you guys, this was great.